Hi everyone, I'm Ryan, welcome back. I'm going to be messing about with wheels today. So what I need to try and understand is it going to be possible for me to use this wheel that I bought on the Sid the Scrambler build or not? So this wheel came off of the CB250 RS and it does not simply fit the Super Dream swinging arm using the standard fit spacers, definitely not. But I want to try and understand, can I make it work in this using possibly one of the original spacers out the Super Dream and then maybe a custom on the opposite side, the brake side. So I just want to experiment so I can understand it in my head. So I'm going to be borrowing the spacers off the Super Dream, cleaning up this swinging arm and see what I'm finding. Okay, so let's begin with what we can easily determine. CB250 RS, Honda Super Dream. So the internals, firstly the brake. So that's the original brake off of the RS, and that is operating fine and works perfectly. And that looks like it is the same as the brake that goes on the Super Dream, and that to me feels like that works fine. So it looks like the brakes are interchangeable between the two. So that's the starting point. And on the brake side, if I take the original axle, obviously that's a nice tight fit through the bearings. So that's the correct bearings and axle size. And the 250 RS, exactly the same. So the internal bearings are identical, or at least, and the brakes are interchangeable. So I don't believe there's any problem on the brake side of the wheels. I think in principle they're interchangeable. The problem comes when we turn them around, because we've got a completely different method of connecting the sprocket, and this is wider than that, and I'm trying to determine precisely by how much, and that's not proving very simple. Let me try and get a ruler. Yeah, in fact, let's take this sprocket off so we've got something similar between the two. Okay, so I think this just illustrates my problem. So this has got a big circlip that goes around there, obviously got bolts holding the sprocket on, and then if you lift that off you find these sort of free floating studs that sit within these rubberized fixings, whereas on this wheel I think you've got a clip that goes on out there. There's a few bits missing from this, but fundamentally that comes off there, and then inside what you have are these inserts which are held in place. Out. Come on, there you come. By these rubberized cush drives. There you come. So you can see a very different method of attaching the sprocket. Now the method is not my problem. My problem is the width of the wheel and the distance down to the first bearing, because this wheel, the bearing seems to be recessed in further than it is on this wheel. So obviously I need the appropriate spacers, but if I buy the spacers for a 250 RS it won't fit my swinging arm, and if I buy the spacers for a Super Dream it won't fit the wheel. But can I use at least some of the standard spacers and then possibly just have to make up one non-standard to fix the gap. I don't know. So I think the best thing I can do is take the swinging arm, take the wheels, take some measurements, try and work it out from there. Okay. Okay, so distance from the outside of the wheel to the bearing is 12 millimeters on that wheel. And it is 16 mil on that wheel. So there's not a huge difference between them. Surprisingly similar in fact, but still 4 mil difference. Where is the sprocket in relation to the bearing? More interesting things. So these sprockets are the same. This is the one that came off the Super Dream wheel, and it's got this metal insert filler here. Yet if you remove that and you're left with the sprocket without that insert, see that one, I can't just demonstrate it on there, that is too big for that wheel. But if you remove the insert, it fits that wheel perfectly. And then you've got this outer protective lip, which I'd be quite happy to have. That's not a problem in itself. And if you check with a flat edge, the bolts don't protrude past this lip. So that's interesting. So as long as that lip clears the inside of the swinging arm, then we're good. Alright, let me try putting an axle in, see what happens. So, just taken the swinging arm, put the wheel in it, positioned it over to the left so that there is a gap between what would be the sprocket and the swinging arm. So that is as far to the left as that is capable of being located. If that was there, I can measure that spacer in a moment. But the wheel itself, if it was located here, is not central with the swinging arm. But can that rim be offset to the left? So I think the first thing I need to do is to measure how much of an offset I would need and try and determine whether that's feasible or not. Okay, so using the Super Dream as a point of reference, the scale of the task has just become obvious, because if I measure from the centre of the sprocket there, and I have done this before, but if I do it again approximately, you can see that I need to be about 40 mil off this ridge of the springing arm for the sprocket to line up with the sprocket on the front engine. Which means if we transpose that to this and we set this sprocket about the same sort of distance from the swinging arm, about there, it creates that size gap there, which is fine. Getting a spacer for that would be no problem. There's still plenty of side space this side for the brake and a small spacer, that's not a problem. But look where the tyre is in relation to the centre of the swinging arm. It is nowhere near the centre, not even close. Now I'm confident that I could have the rim offset slightly, but that looks like that's a huge offset. I'm going to try and get a measurement on that so I know what sort of scale I'm looking at. But I thought I could offset the rim by, you know, 10 mil, 15 mil. That looks like it's a lot more than that to me. I think I could be rapidly getting out of my depth trying to continue with this wheel. And I'm told if I get a CB250T wheel, it will give me the style I want and be a direct replacement. Should have known that before I bought this one. Anyway, let's try and get a measurement and then we'll know whether this is even feasible or not. So we've got centre of the swinging arm, is that mark there, centre of the wheel, that mark there, distance between them, about 18 millimeters. Can I offset that rim onto that wheel by 18 mil? I don't know. That's beyond what I thought I needed to achieve. I'm going to have to research that. I don't know. I've seen people offset a rim. I say seen, watched YouTube videos, people offset a rim, and they've just slowly walked it over by tightening and loosening the spokes. That looks like quite a big distance to me. If I try playing with the wheel, it's going to be out of true. And if I leave it as is, maybe I can just resell it as a, you know, I can clean it up, photograph it, resell it, try and get at least some of the money back I spent on this. And then spend that towards shopping for the correct wheel. That's probably the sensible thing to do. Okay, well that's where I stand. At least I know now. Still need to measure those spaces just to be sure. Let me try and do that now. Okay, so I'm just throwing a rear wheel in. This is absolutely not fitted properly. There's no spacers, there's nothing. It's just mocking stuff up for the sake of me understanding what I might be able to do. But I have noticed this is the standard shock, which obviously would bolt through there. But looking at this swinging arm, there is a bit more travel available before anything interferes. So look, there's a bit more travel there. So that to me says I could buy some slightly longer shocks and fit them in there, and then I've just raised the back of the bike up by about an inch. So actually let's look slightly more, sort of centre to centre. Yes. Of course that's in the way. That's about 15 mil. So there's about 15 mil more travel still available in that swinging arm before it interferes on the frame at the front here. So it's beginning to clash there. But again, that could easily, just this little bit of weld, if that bit of weld just there was taken up, and it's only the bottom of that seam, which inside here is already reinforced by this plate. So you could reinforce that more up under here, remove that ridge from that, and then you'd get more articulation on the swinging arm, which would then allow a longer shock, which would then lift the back of the bike. I mean, you're only talking that much maximum, even if I cleared that. But might all help. Don't know. Continue to think about that, because I know these standard shocks are only available in one length, so they'll have to go for a completely different make, model, style, and just try and match the length up and then re-engineer the fixing points. But it's a thought. Well, there she stands on a pair of wheels for the first time. So I don't really know what this proves. In fact, it doesn't really prove anything, because that's That is the correct size wheel I intend to run at the back, but it's not the right style. So I think I'm going to research a bit more, but I'm 99% sure right now I'm going to be selling that wheel and trying to source a CB250T spoked rear wheel. And then on the front, I mean, that's just a Super Dream wheel thrown in there. But I now need to research what is the correct XL125R front wheel, which will be 21-inch and spoked, which then might work with that caliper, might not. Might need to then start searching for an XL caliper. I don't know. I'm way out of my depth trying to mix and match bits at the moment, but I'm enjoying it. Surely that's the biggest reason for doing this, isn't it? It's a challenge. I'm learning. There's so many things I don't know that, quite frankly, I don't know what I don't know. But there it is. There's on some wheels. I've wasted hours to not really achieve anything, but to learn stuff. So I understand the scope of the task. I don't know if I can do it, but quite frankly, that for me is as much time as I've got today. So yeah, give me your comments, like and subscribe. That's all appreciated very much. But until next time, take care. See you soon.